All right, I think we're live. So, welcome to RetireJapan TV, the show where we talk about personal finance, investing, retirement, and life in Japan, mainly life in Japan. Although today we've actually got someone who's in the finance world on. So, this is Martin from Smart Money Asia. He's got a great site, he's got a good blog, and I'm really excited to get him on today to talk all things money in Japan. Hi, Martin.
Fantastic.
Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
So, what brought you to Japan?
Okay, so I came here in 1997. I was a student at Bradford University. They came around recruiting for the JET program. And I went to that
really
with a friend
well
of
paid,
mine.
didn't it?
It did. It was really well paid. They were really convincing in their recruiting program. So I remember going for my interview at the Japanese embassy in London, and I was a student. I still had long hair. I was wearing a suit that I'd bought at some flea market like the day before. But the one advantage I had is that I specifically asked to go to countryside Japan. And I don't think many people request that. So they were like, sure, if you want to go to the countryside, we'll find somewhere for you. So that's how I came here.
Where did they put you?
I was in Tottori Prefecture, so West Japan, next to Shimane. I think it's the least populous prefecture in Japan. I think it is.
Something like that, yeah. Sand dunes and no people, right?
Correct. So yeah, I was in a little town, a couple of thousand people. I was the first male jet. I think they'd had one female jet before me. So yeah,
wow.
It was an incredible experience. It was fun.
Tottori, that's where.
Go on then.
I'm just going to say Tottori is where the sand dunes are, I think.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there.
I was actually on the other side. I was close to Yonago, which is closer to Shimane. But yeah, Tottori sand dunes are really something if you haven't been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'd like to go there.
Yeah, it's on the list.
Worth seeing.
So how'd you go from jet to finance, basically? What's the path there?
Yeah. So I did 2 years on jet, and I don't know, something clicked. I felt pretty happy here. I thought, okay, I'd like to stay a little bit longer, but I'd like to go somewhere with some more people. So I kind of gravitated towards Tokyo. I was an ALT. I was in Chiba for about 6 months. I did another couple of years in Saitama. And yeah, it was kind of end of 2001. I was like, okay, I can't just be an ALT forever. I've got to do something else. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I basically just, gave my notice, said, okay, I'm finishing my contract. And, those days you went to the internet cafe. I'd get the Japan Times. I think it was Tuesdays, I want to say. They had the job ads.
So you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you knew you wanted to stay in Japan?
Correct. And I was like, either I'm going to find something else or, I'll have to leave if I don't, because I won't have a visa. Mm-hmm. So I started applying for jobs, and it's funny looking back on it. So I got hired by a company called Sports Mondial, and they sold tickets and corporate hospitality for sporting events. 2002 was the World Cup.
Oh,
the Football World Cup in Japan.
Good timing.
So, I did a few job interviews and, nothing really happened. And I met these guys and they just kind of hired me on the spot. And I was like, wow, I've got a job. It was amazing. And of course, I realized later that they were hiring anybody with a pulse who was willing to pick up the telephone and call people and sell corporate hospitality. So they had this deal where, you had tickets for the game. There was an event before, a nice meal, and, some guest speaker would come and talk to them. And then, there was an event after the game too. So, I was thrown into sales, basically telesales with, no real experience. So there were a bunch of us in a room. And I think we became kind of infamous just in the run up to that World Cup because we called everybody in Tokyo. So any kind of business, we were calling and talking to them about the World Cup, and pretty hot topic, pretty hot product to have to sell. So yeah, I did that for, I think it was probably the first half of 2002. World Cup was in the summer, I think. David Beckham.
Yeah, there was a
Beckham.
sports
That was
bar in
Beckham
Sendai
fever in
cleaned up.
Japan. Really? And so yeah, that ended, and like I say, we'd pestered everybody to buy tickets and buy hospitality, and we got noticed by a financial planning company.
Oh.
And it was like, oh, these guys are pretty good on the phone, right? They don't give up. They keep calling.
They might be free after the World Cup.
Yeah. So a couple of us got hired by a financial planning company. And so our initial job there was making appointments for their advisors on the telephone. So, we were doing telesales. I don't know if people still do that now. I think it's a job
it's
you have to
online.
be.
It's the same business model. It's like get people
right.
into an interview with the,
Yeah.
product
You have to
person.
be kind of young, brave, and gung-ho to do it, I think. So yeah, that's how I got started. And I did that for a while. I actually, I kind of run the administration for the office as well for a while. And then, I was watching these people working as advisors, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do that. But if I'm going to do it, I want to do it. Yeah, right. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it properly. And the UK Chartered Insurance Institute does all of the UK financial planning qualifications. And you can take the exams in Japan, or at least you could in 2002. I don't know if you still can. So I first did, there was an international qualification, which was quite basic financial planning. Pretty much anyone could pass it with a little bit of study. But then I did, at that time, it was called the UK Financial Planning Certificate. That was 3 exams. That was a bit more intense. And I had to learn a lot about UK products that I've never recommended to anybody. But
Right.
it was a good grounding. So that was the progression. I kind of, I just looked for a job, ended up in sales, and started off making appointments on the telephone.
So do you remember the name of that basic international qualification you got?
It's changed several times.
Oh, right.
It used to be called ICFA, International Certificate for Financial Advisors. Then they changed it. At one point, it was something else. I could find it if you want to.
Just wondering. Sorry.
If you want to check it out, I'm sure it still exists.
It's really interesting, actually, that all 3 of us came on the JET program. And all 3 of us had completely different careers. So I kind of stayed in education and did a bunch of stuff. Martin, you went through the finance route, and Daniel went into computer kind of programming stuff. But all from the same starting point. So it just goes to show there is a lot of options for people. Or there were. Do you think it's the same now? Like, I think for education, it's slightly harder now, possibly. I think conditions are slightly worse. There's more competition, but you can still, do okay in education.
I think you can. Yep. And I think tech probably, I don't know, you probably know better than me, Daniel, but I think if, you're going to put in the work, go to coding school. In fact, I think you had a guest on here who learned how to code after she came to Japan and has made a career out of it. So yeah, I think there's opportunities there. There's always opportunities in sales. If, like I say, if you're young and you're not scared, then
you're on the phone. Apparently 80% of people refuse to do stuff on the phone in Japan or something. Like
they do. Some people, they'll come in and they'll sit at the desk and they just won't do it, can't do it. So yeah, I think there are still opportunities. I don't know if it's the same.
You've got that skill set. You're still okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people went into the recruitment, headhunting industry. Same kind of skill set, getting in touch with people, talking to people, interviewing. So yeah, I think the opportunities still exist. So
are you still working for a financial planning company, or have you gone freelance?
I am. So, I am. So the original company I worked for, it was an interesting time because back in the day, so 2002, if you were a foreign resident living in Japan, there weren't a lot of options. So if you wanted to invest in Japan, you had to talk to the guy at Nomura Securities. You'd have to go and like meet them and have an interview and go through their sales process, and then they'd open you an account and probably sell you whatever fund did really well last year. It just wasn't so easy, right? So the company that I joined, they probably only had at the time 4 or 5 kind of offshore products that were really, they were made for expats, or just made for people living outside of their own country, mainly focused on British expats, but not limited to them. But that company, which was a small advisory that was a startup, really successful, some really good salespeople there. And just as I joined, they merged with a bigger organization. So we kind of joined in with this company that was big in Dubai, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Bangkok. So it was a bigger organization, and it had a much more kind of a professional career focus. So they were moving away from the kind of sell a product and get an initial commission and then find somebody else model to building your own advisory business. So building an assets under management business where you get a client and you look after them and you keep them and you keep looking after them, and you earn 1% per year or 0.5% per year for doing a good job, rather than just sell the product next person. So the market was just changing as I joined, which was great because I got a lot of really good training. They had a lot of experienced advisors there, and like I say, I don't think there weren't so many options for foreign residents in Japan who wanted to invest, or it was more difficult.
Whereas now,
totally changed.
Wonderland, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how much things can change in, I guess it has been a long time though. We're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I first got into this and I started thinking about money in 2009.
Okay.
So by the time I got to the investing part, opening broker accounts and stuff, it's kind of 2012. So, we had the online brokers. I think NISA started up the following year, maybe.
Okay.
Iveco was still restricted to self-employed people, so my wife got it and I couldn't. So it's so we've seen all that become really mainstream now. So now it's on the news every night pretty much. The new NISA is there's a lot of interest.
Amazing, isn't it?
Very cool.
Sorry to answer your question. I worked for that company. Then I did run my own business for about four years or so, and kind of made the decision in the end that trying to make a growing advisory business, because of the way things were changing, I didn't think it was really a good idea to keep soldiering on. So I've got a group of clients that I still service, I still look after, and I kind of moved back to the old company, or part of the old company that I was working with. So they're called Imperium Capital. They don't actually have an office here, so I'm kind of their man in Japan. There's me and one other advisor here servicing clients here. But I'm much more of a farmer than a hunter at the moment. I'm not really going out trying to find new clients, new business. I'm just looking after an existing base of clients.
So you're not DMing people on LinkedIn or anything like?
No, not calling guys up at a trading desk at 8:30 a.m. before the market's open and trying to get an appointment with them.
Right. Probably more relaxing that way, I guess.
Much more relaxing, yeah.
Cool. So you actually have a website, Smart Money Asia, which I'm a fan of.
I do. Thank you.
So why do that? That seems quite different to your kind of day job in a way.
Absolutely. And I think it was that recognition that everything's changed. The way that people buy financial services and the way that they choose products, it's all completely different. It's much more buyer oriented now. You can do your own research and find an account and go online and open an account without any help. And I kind of recognized this shift, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. What can I do? And I thought, well, okay, I can perhaps provide a resource. I've got some experience. And for me, it was kind of, I think you've probably found the same, that it helps you to clarify your own thoughts and ideas by writing. Because you have to make it make sense and make it readable. So I think part of it was for me, and part of it was just for people who were trying to do it by themselves, and maybe I could help. So I try to make any post that I write, I try to put something in there that's easily actionable. So if you're trying to do this, here's how you can do it. If you're trying to figure out how to buy this type of investment, then here's a way to do it. So that's what I'm aiming for. And you, of course, have done the same thing. You've created an incredible resource. So I don't think I have nearly as many readers and fans as you.
No, I'm just lucky that people came and contributed, because it's very much the community. Like
it's fantastic.
I haven't got the background, I haven't got qualifications. It's just I made a place and people came, and it's been I'm really grateful for that.
Wonderful, well done. Yeah, so that's why I started. Just recognizing a shift.
Yeah, and your emails are really interesting. Like you kind of periodically you send out a kind of, here's what I think is going on in the world, which is really interesting to read. And one thing that you think is going on is some kind of Bitcoin resurgence.
Absolutely, yes.
So you're certainly more into cryptocurrency than I am. So I've been wrong about cryptocurrency since about 2014. Someone told me about Bitcoin in 2014, and I was like, that's such a stupid idea. And I've been wrong ever since. So I actually do have a little bit of crypto. So I'm not a complete, I'm not completely anti. I have about 1.5% in crypto, which actually, thinking about it, that's kind of a stupid amount, because it's not gonna make any difference, is it? Like, even if
I think you're wrong there. No, I think it absolutely will make a difference. Yeah.
So you're in the this is gonna 100x kind of camp.
So yeah, obviously, is that my mic? No, okay.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of high conviction on Bitcoin rather than crypto.
Okay.
I think is kind of the first point. I think if you're coming to it as new or relatively new, that's the first thing that you need to separate out. It's not really the same thing. I would focus on Bitcoin to begin with. Obviously, the performance has been out of this world. It's probably one of the best performing assets on the planet at the moment. So just from that perspective, I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Paul Tudor Jones. It's kind of a legendary trader, legendary Wall Street guy. So yeah, he owns Bitcoin. He calls it the fastest horse in the race. So he sees this asset class that's just growing exponentially. It's got this kind of fan base of investors who, no matter what happens, will never sell. And he sees something kind of incredible in that. For me, when I look at it, so I can break it down. There's three kinds of people who are into Bitcoin. There's the engineers, so they're into it for the tech. It's a really elegant piece of technology and design. There's the idealists who are really in it for the freedom aspect. They think they should have the right to transact peer-to-peer without some trusted third party in the middle, like a bank. So they want, they just want to be able to transact. And then you've got the speculators, which kind of gets grouped into traders and longer term investors. So personally, I think I have a little bit of the idealist in me. I get a little bit sick of, all of the KYC and poor service from financial institutions, but really I come at it as an investor. And when I can kind of break that down into 3 reasons why you would look at it as an investment. And the number one, I mean, you just said you have 1.5% diversification. So if you already own a diversified portfolio of cash, bonds, stocks, property, commodities, if you've already got a mix of everything, if you add a little bit of Bitcoin, so there's a risk curve. Cash is down here, low risk, low return. Stocks are up there. Bitcoin, of course, comes in at that kind of top right corner of the risk curve. But if you're already diversified and you add a little, you don't really increase your risk that much, but you increase your return. And so, 1.5%, that makes a difference. The return goes up, but you're not making a massive impact on your risk. Sorry, Daniel looks like he doesn't believe that he doubts that one there.
Oh, no.
Please go ahead.
I'm just trying to think. Is it called the efficient frontier theory or something like that?
Yeah, Harry Markowitz is the guy that, modern portfolio theory, efficient frontier. If you're looking for a modern day kind of, expert on diversification and asset allocation, Ray Dalio is probably the most famous guy. I think, if you're building an investment portfolio, that's someone you should read. He pretty much sees it as the most important thing. Interestingly enough, he's not a Bitcoin guy, but he thinks it's interesting. He said, 1 to 2% of assets is a good allocation.
Oh,
so that's kind of number one. I see it as a diversifier. Number two, I see it as protection against the debasement of fiat money. So money as we know it. I think people confuse the price of things going up with the value of money going down, which is what's really happening. So we've gone through this period where, especially since 2008, that has accelerated. In the US, in Europe, in Japan, it's been going since the bubble burst in the 90s.
Is that any different from owning stocks or real estate, though? Because you could say that those also protect you from the devalue of the currency, right?
Absolutely. So the only reason anybody invests is to preserve or increase their spending power. If you could just put money in a bank account and it would keep pace with inflation, then you wouldn't have to take any risk. So that's the only reason you're taking risk. But again, we're talking about the fastest horse in the race, and we're talking about an asset that's actually been designed to be deflationary. So fiat money is inflationary. They keep printing more of it. If you keep making more of something and increasing the supply, then obviously the value goes down. So the value of money is going down over time. This is the one thing out there that's really been made to be deflationary. And that's kind of my third point there is, it's simply a supply and demand thing.
So there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins or whatever, right?
Correct. And if nobody cares and nobody buys it, it will go to zero over time. But if people keep, buying it, holding it, using it, transacting with it, if adoption continues and demand rises, then the price can only really go one way.
Because that's my main kind of philosophical or logical objection to it. And why should any one cryptocurrency have any intrinsic value at all? Right? You can just make a new one, right? You can clone them. Just make the new code.
That's why it's Bitcoin and not crypto, because they have been making more and more and more of them, but they typically don't come with that fixed supply. There's a lot of different models that really, I think of Bitcoin as a kind of digital property. Some people would see it as digital gold. So it's deliberately made to be a scarce digital asset. Ethereum, which is kind of the number 2 cryptocurrency, is a totally different animal. So that's programmable money. You can build stuff on Bitcoin, but you can build all kinds of stuff on Ethereum. So you can build decentralized exchanges. You can build stable coins. So you can transact now in coins that are pegged to the dollar and actually backed by dollar assets like US treasuries. But it's a totally different thing from Bitcoin.
Okay, so you would separate out Ethereum
Absolutely.
from
totally
the investable cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So if you're new, focus on Bitcoin. If you already own Bitcoin and you're kind of looking for something, again, you're just taking more risk. But Ethereum is huge now. It's very widely used. And then you've got all of these other kind of, they call them L1s, so layer one chains and protocols that are coming out that, all of them do stuff. You can build on Solana, you can build on Polygons, but they're all kind of coming down the list now. And Bitcoin it's designed to operate in a 4-year cycle. Probably the number one most important thing you have to understand about it is the 4-year cycle. We're actually coming up to what's called the halving. I'm not going to try and explain too much about crypto mining because I don't know what I'm talking about when it gets to the technical stuff. But very, very simply, computers generate blocks. Basically, a new block's created about every 10 minutes, I think. And computers are doing calculations in order to race for that next block. And the reward that you get for mining a block and mining a Bitcoin gets halved every 4 years. It's basically a 4-year limiter on supply. So the supply of Bitcoin slows down. It becomes harder to mine. The reward gets smaller. And, I think, we're already at 19 million something has been mined. There's only a couple of million left, but that couple of million is going to take an awful long time because it keeps getting more difficult. So what you see is that each time that supply gets cut in half, or the speed of the supply gets cut in half, you enter a bull market.
The existing ones get more valuable.
Yeah, so Bitcoin becomes more valuable as it becomes more scarce. So you go through these periods. The first time anyone asked me about Bitcoin was 2013. Why? Because it was in a bull market. It went from a few $100 to over $1,000. And then nobody asked me about it for 4 years because, of course, it got to the end of that bull market cycle and entered a bear market. So the next time I heard about it was 2017, which was the first time I bought it, actually. I bought it kind of early 2017, and I watched it go up to 20,000. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I wonder how high it's going to go. And then I watched it go back down to 3,000. And then I kind of learned, like, okay, there's a cycle here. And I started, understanding this 4-year cycle of Bitcoin. This only applies to Bitcoin, and all of the other crypto assets just follow that.
Right.
But this is the only one this is really, I think of it as a base layer of internet money. It's really all that matters. The guys that trade crypto are not trading it to get more dollars. They're trading it to get more Bitcoin. So they will trade alts and small cap crazy dog coins that don't really do anything in an effort to gain more Bitcoin. So that's why I say Bitcoin, not crypto. It's Bitcoin that drives the whole cycle. So getting an understanding of that cycle, the next halving date is April this year. It was up 150, I wrote it down, 154% last year, I think, Bitcoin. So to just come out of that bear market, it crashes 80% from top of a bull market to the bottom. So yeah, we went from kind of 69,000 top November 2021. Whole bunch of stuff blows up as it goes down. FTX blew up, Luna blew up, absolute carnage because it's a new industry and people are running it and people do stupid things. But then a base was formed. I think it got about as low as about 16,000, maybe 14,000. And they have an accumulation period. Everybody hates it for a while and then people start accumulating it. And then, last year, the year before the halving, it's up 150%. Halving is coming soon. So 2025, next year, is when we'd expect to see the kind of next peak. And, all of this is probability. There's no guarantee it's going to happen, but probably based on the 4-year cycle and the way that the asset works, we're going to see some fireworks over the next 1 year to a year
a
and
higher
a half.
cap than 69 grand or whatever it was last time.
Probably. No guarantees. Nobody knows for sure, but most likely, I'm pretty high conviction that that's going to happen.
Are you not concerned that it's held by so few people, like the vast majority of it?
It's a bit of a bad thing.
Like 80% of it is held by like one wallet or two wallets or something.
Oh, I don't know. Is that really true? I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
A lot
Obviously,
of
I'm
people,
not an expert, but it seems very concentrated in a few people's hands, right? The vast majority of it.
I never thought so.
Okay.
Obviously, there are some people that do own big chunks. I mean, MicroStrategy. I don't know if you're familiar with the company. It's run by a guy called Michael Saylor. So he sees Bitcoin. His whole reason for buying Bitcoin is this protection against the debasement of money. So, he runs a successful company. It makes a lot of money. It's got a huge cash balance, and he just sees it as this big melting ice cube that he's sitting on. And he started buying Bitcoin. That company owns about 180 something thousand Bitcoins at present. So he's made a huge bet. He's just been accumulating it. His average price getting in is about 30,000, 31,000. So that's a big holder. But there's a lot of small holders. There's a lot of people that own less than one Bitcoin. There's a lot of people that own between 1 and 3. I think you'll find that it's pretty well spread.
What I do like about the blockchain cryptocurrency is that even if you do get people holding a lot, it's all transparent. You can see as soon as that moves to somewhere else, and you can see where it goes and identify changes rather than it being hidden somewhere.
Yeah. Anyone who knows how to look can look. It's a distributed ledger. I mean, all money is a ledger at the end of the day. It's just a balance sheet of I owe you this and you owe me that. This just happens to be, it's not stored in any central place. It's distributed around the network, and like you say, anybody can see. You can check if you want to know who's got it.
Slightly more practically, in Japan, cryptocurrency trading is taxed as income rather than capital gains, which is incredibly unfavorable. That doesn't put you off. Do you think that's going to change in the future?
I wish I could say yes. It's changed for corporates. I can't remember what changed exactly, but I think for corporates it's taxed more like capital gains now. But for individuals, it's still taxed as income. So it doesn't really pay to trade it if you live in Japan. You're much better off holding it for the long term. If you're going to trade, then trade the 4-year cycle.
Long term. There is a lobbying group, isn't there? I can't remember what it is now in Japan. Every year they come out and they sort of push for changing tax laws, but I think it's just not happening yet.
It was kind of crazy because when I first bought it in 2017, Japan was considered a global leader in regulation of crypto.
Is that before Mt. Gox blew up?
No, this is after.
After? Okay.
Maybe because of
partly, They knew people were going to buy it anyway, and they wanted regulated exchanges. But they were kind of all, we're going to regulate it and we'll be a world leader, but actually we're going to tax it. We're going to penalize you for making money on it as an individual. It's a little bit of a shame. Something I mentioned in a recent post is that's what makes ETFs attractive. So the US finally, after years of wrangling, just approved spot Bitcoin ETFs. So an ETF that holds actual Bitcoin rather than something that just trades futures. Finally got done. Yes.
Can I just stop you there? I just want to explain to listeners, if we're not aware, ETF means exchange traded fund, and it's kind of a package that you can buy and sell just as regular shares through your brokerage. And so connected with that, I did want to ask you, do you think that's going to come to Japan as well?
I don't know, actually. I haven't heard anything.
No. Okay. Sorry to
Do
interrupt.
you know if we can buy
No
the
idea.
US ones from Japan?
If you have a US brokerage account, yes.
Okay, so then you wouldn't be able to get them through a Japanese broker, but maybe if you have an overseas
It's
broker.
unlikely. I don't know. So a Japanese broker, you can't buy all US stocks, right? You can buy kind of the popular
vanilla
ones. I can't see them approving a Bitcoin ETF that easily, but we'll see. I mean, you look at the names that have launched them. BlackRock, largest asset management company in the world. I wrote down their AUM, $9.1 trillion in assets under management. Just launched a spot Bitcoin ETF. This is what people have been talking about for years, is the institutions are going to come to, Bitcoin and crypto. So it's happening. Invesco, Fidelity. Another good guy to follow is a guy called Urian Timmer. He's the director of global macro at Fidelity, which is a huge US investment firm. And he writes a lot about Bitcoin, and he comes at it from that diversification angle. He talks a lot about Metcalfe's law, which is something that's worth looking at, which is how you calculate the value of a network. So the value of networks is proportional to the number of connective users to the system. So as the users increase, the value goes up. So he compares it a lot to mobile phone adoption, internet adoption. And, this isn't some guy in a hoodie. This is the director of global macro at Fidelity talking about Bitcoin this way. So again, do you want to own a little bit of it? To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Don't go overboard. Don't put your life savings into it, of course. But
if people do want to do that in Japan, there are several cryptocurrency specific regulated brokers. I've used SBI has one. I've forgotten the name now. Virtual
yes.
SBI VC, SBI Virtual Currencies, I think it is. And then I've used Bitflyer. Those two both seem to be highly regulated. A little bit frustrating with the red tape, but a little bit more. I felt they were a bit safer.
Yes. Yeah. Any exchange in Japan is heavily regulated, heavily policed, regular checks, FSA coming in, telling them to improve this, improve that. Doesn't mean they can't get hacked. Although in Japanese exchanges have always compensated users when they do get hacked. But that's another thing that makes Bitcoin so tricky, is that you shouldn't really be giving it to a third party to look after. You absolutely shouldn't be leaving it sitting on an exchange. So if you buy your Bitcoin on Bitflyer, you shouldn't really leave it sitting there, because they can get hacked.
Even if they don't. So I had that with Bitflyer. They sent me a message once saying, "Can you please explain where this transaction came from? If you don't answer within 7 days, we'll freeze your account." I'm like, whoa, that's my money. Wait a minute.
Yeah, so much for Bitcoin being the freedom money. It's going to get more and more regulated. But that said, you can still transact peer-to-peer. So I can pay you guys for a service, and we don't need anybody to get between us in that transaction. And it's changing. It's still really clunky for actually transacting Bitcoin in particular, compared to stable coins, for example. But more and more stuff's being built, more and more layers. If you think of Bitcoin as the base layer, more layers are being built on top of that. I've seen demos where you can stream Bitcoin. So, we could be having a consultation here, and I could be streaming you by the minute a payment.
Oh,
nice. For the consultation. So it's going to get easier to transact. So, I think the only question is, do you think that more and more people are going to buy it, hold it, use it, trade it? If the answer is yes, then it's probably a good thing to own some. And if the answer is no, then I think that's fine too.
It seems quite likely now that, they're bringing out financial products that contain it, that are easy to buy. You know, if we've got
Yes.
mutual funds that hold Bitcoin that you can buy on, you know, by the yen, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, I remember how I got onto ETFs now, because of course, if you own an ETF, it's taxed as stock in Japan.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That was the point I was getting to somewhere.
Yeah, nice to make.
So
Yeah,
that
nice
it's
to make that.
taxed
But
as
we don't-
capital gains compared to, it's not actually taxed as crypto, even if it holds crypto.
But we don't
So
have an
that's
ETF
interesting.
in Japan just yet for Bitcoin.
No.
Yeah, that would be the game changer, wouldn't it? Because it removes the tax disincentive.
Yes. The Bitcoin purists are probably not fans, but yeah, there's a gold ETF. It's the same thing. You don't really own the gold. It's in a vault somewhere in HSBC, but you get exposure to, you know, the asset class and its movements. So yeah, I
Nice.
think
So
it's good
what
enough.
percentage are you comfortable saying what your percentage is of crypto?
Yeah, it's probably higher than average out of total investments, and it changes during that 4-year cycle. But now I'm probably at 30 to 40% of total investments. So that's my level of conviction. I don't recommend anybody else does that. I think you know, 1 or 2% or 3 to 5%. Again, it just depends. I was watching, is it Konichi Japan?
Oh,
You had
Konichi Value.
Konichi Value. That's right. You had Ray on here, right? Is that
Yeah,
his name?
yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about, you know, if you're not used to buying stocks, then just buy something, and you know, get a little bit of exposure. And I think that's how I think people really should get started with Bitcoin: is get a small amount. You know, it doesn't have to be a big amount of money. Whatever you're comfortable with, and once you actually own a little bit, then you'll keep an eye on it. You'll read about it. You'll start to learn more, and you may find that your level of conviction goes up over time, and you want to increase that.
Yeah, because it's fractional, isn't it? You can buy minuscule
Yes, good point.
percentages of one Bitcoin as well.
Good point. You don't have to buy a whole one. A lot of people make the mistake of going like, oh, Bitcoin's $40,000, so I don't want to buy that, but I can buy a dog coin that's, you know, it's one cent. So I'm going to buy that because it's cheaper. And yeah, it's not the same thing, clearly. So yeah, you can buy a fraction. You can invest 1,000 yen or 5,000 yen into Bitcoin and just dip a toe.
But keep it in your own wallet.
Yes. That's the tricky thing, is, you know, you have to take responsibility for it, you know, yourself.
That's another downside, isn't it? Because there's, you know, the stories of people that had, you know, 60 Bitcoins on their hard drive and it's in a landfill somewhere. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of people, you know, they don't feel comfortable being responsible for either, you know, keeping track of the password or keeping track of the device. So
yes, yeah, I think if you're not confident of your ability to, you know, keep something safe and keep your password and stuff like that, then yeah, you should definitely be careful. Maybe self-custody is not for you, but there are other solutions. So there are now what's called multi-sig solutions. So you don't actually give your Bitcoin away, but you share instead of just having one private key that you own, you share it out with a couple of organizations. So if you lose yours, then there's still 2 backups. So there are multi-sig solutions available now. I didn't do a very good job of explaining them, but they take away some of that risk of, you know, you've lost your password. I think custody solutions will also increase. So they already exist, but there will be more and more reliable institutions that you could get to hold it for you for a fee.
Okay. All right. I think that's a really good overview of cryptocurrency for anyone who didn't have a strong opinion already. And yeah, just going back to kind of general personal finance. So what's your kind of bog standard advice for people?
Okay. So basic things. I think probably the first thing, and it's always the most difficult, is just to have some kind of plan. And, it's difficult for people who are living outside of their own country. They don't necessarily know how long they're going to stay. It's tricky, I understand. But if you don't have some kind of plan that you're working towards, it becomes very difficult to get things organized. So I think that's number one. Just try and feel your way to a plan of, okay, I'm going to stay here for X number of years. Then I'm going to go there. Then I'm going to do this. I get it that it's not easy, but that's the first thing. Have a plan. Cover the basics. So before you start investing money, you need to get an emergency cash reserve, money stashed away in the bank. This is money that you're not going to spend, you're not going to invest. It's there for emergencies if you need it. And everyone has a different level of comfort. It depends a lot on your level of job security. If you're really confident in your job, then maybe you only need a couple of months, expenses covered. But for most people, if you lose your job tomorrow, you'd probably want to have 3 to 6 months expenses covered in a bank account. Some people want a year, some people want more. Get a cash reserve, basic insurance, make sure your health insurance is covered. Maybe you want some, absolutely. Get rid of that as fast as possible. Yeah. Get rid of high interest debt as quickly as you can. Yeah, basic insurance, cash reserve, some kind of pension. And by pension, it doesn't have to be a pension product, but something that you consider a longer term investment that you're putting money into on a monthly basis, even if it's a very small amount. Again, just get started with something. Doesn't have to be perfect from day one, but get in the habit of, taking some of the money that you save each month and putting it into medium to long-term investments. And, once you've covered the basics, the name of the game is kind of growing your personal balance sheet over time. Is how I look at it. So when I do a kind of a planning session with somebody, I'm going through their balance sheet and saying, okay, well, first, income expenditure, how much do you receive? How much do you pay out? What's left over at the end of the month? Then, what do you have in fixed assets, medium to longer term assets? What do you have in cash? Just the world, according to me, is kind of, it should be about 10 to 20% in fixed assets, 10 to 20% in cash, which includes your emergency fund, and then 60 to 80% in medium to longer term investments. And then, you just try to make that bigger.
And it's very boring once you set it up, but
it's not really
good, right?
not really exciting. Yes, there's no magic involved. It's just getting in the habit and keep doing it.
We've had a couple of questions from our listeners. Thank you. And I think they're related, so I'm going to say them together. David says,
okay.
Bitcoin is quite scary. And Jack says, should I invest in crypto or stocks or both?
Okay. So Bitcoin is quite scary. I guess we'll take that one first. I mean, everybody's tolerance for risk is different. If it's scary, then you're probably not ready to do anything. So start with building up other assets. Again, when we're talking about using it as a diversifier, the aim is first to get something that's diversified. So the question again about stocks or Bitcoin, you're talking about two assets that are kind of high and right on that risk curve. You're not really diversified if you only own stocks. I think it's okay if you're young, and it's fine also if you're young and you're just contributing a small amount every month, because you get that averaging effect. It's a good way to buy anything that's scary. Scary really just means it goes up and down a lot. So buying it little by little, same amount every month, and some months you buy less because the price is higher, and some months you buy more because the price is low, and you get that average effect over time. So you purchase a volatile asset at an average price. But yeah, should I invest in crypto and stocks or both? Ideally both, but ideally also cash, bonds, property, commodities. Ideally you want to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
and you mentioned
both,
earlier just
both and more, basically. I guess the simple answer.
But yeah, I get it. I mean, Bitcoin is scary. Crypto is more scary, and it should be. So Bitcoin goes down 80% in a bear market. Everything else goes down 90, 95.
Or 100.
It's hard to come. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to come back from 100% down, 95% too. So yeah, of course, you should approach with caution. If it doesn't fit your risk profile, then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Actually, that's something that I come back to a lot, is that it's not a competition. So no one's, there's no prizes for being the best performing, person with a portfolio. You've just got to reach your goal.
No.
So as long as you reach your goal, you win. So yeah, so do things that you're comfortable with as long as you're getting towards your goal, I guess.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you keep kind of learning and studying on the way, and you find that your risk tolerance increases, then great. You can take a little bit more risk. But yeah, sleeping at night is important.
We've had a question on Facebook, foregone conclusion. Oh, sorry, on YouTube. So I've heard about this, the Chinese New Year. Is there a cycle at the start of the year when the Chinese, all of them, get their $50,000 investment limit and plow it overseas into crypto, for example? Or has that ended? Was it ever a thing? Was it all a myth?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I've never heard that before.
Oh,
it's kind of interesting.
I remember when in past cryptocurrency bubbles on Reddit, if the price shot up for some reason, there would always have to be some reason that people knew and everybody else didn't. And
yes.
Inevitably, it would be January, February, and it's okay. It's Chinese New Year, and all Chinese do this and get money and put it in that. 1 billion people, they all do the same thing, and that's why it went up.
I have heard a lot of the current stock market boom in Japan is from overseas investment, some of it Chinese. So there is something to that. But
absolutely, I'm hearing that because the Chinese stock market's not doing so great at the moment. And
I would have thought that would
people
be
follow price. This is what happens.
Cheap.
I mean, this is
it's so cheap now.
This is why we have bull markets and bear markets, because people react to price. If the price of the market goes up, then more people want to buy it. And it's the same with Bitcoin. It's the same with stocks. So yeah, there's probably Chinese money. There definitely is Chinese money coming into Japanese stocks at the moment, and other overseas investment too. But I don't know if there's some Chinese New Year
deadline,
bonanza.
Right?
I don't know. Fascinating theory, though.
Awesome. So what kind of mistakes do you see a lot people making? Because that might be more kind of instructive than the kind of standard advice, which people it goes in one ear and out the other. But what are the big mistakes?
I go on and on at people about base currency. So I think currency is a mistake that people make with investing, and it doesn't really affect people who live in their own, their home country so much. But once you start moving around the world and moving overseas, base currency you can have a great investment in the wrong currency and make zero money. So it's really important. People tend to confuse their base currency with the currency they're earning money in. So they live in Japan, they're earning yen, so I'm going to invest in, Japanese yen and buy Japanese stocks. But if you're going to spend the money in another country, in another currency, you're taking currency risk. So understanding your own base currency, people make this mistake a lot. Japanese people have made this mistake so many times since the bubble burst. And interest rates have been low here, as they go chasing yield. They buy New Zealand bonds, they buy Brazilian bonds, and it's great. They're paying
Turkish
8%
lira,
or
right?
12%, Turkish lira. So getting your base currency right, and well, not getting it wrong, talking about mistakes. So if you're from the UK, you're going to live in Japan, but you're retiring in the UK, your retirement fund should be in pounds. You shouldn't be saving in yen. If you're going to retire in the UK, but your kid really wants to go to school in America, and you're thinking you're going to pay for that, then now you have two base currencies. Because you've got to fund your retirement in the UK, but you want to be saving dollars so that your child can go to school in America. So people can have multiple base currencies. So I think that's the biggest mistake, is getting a good investment in the wrong currency.
That's really interesting, because I haven't heard it. I haven't thought about it like that before, but I've had, there's this image that if you stay in Japan too long, especially at the moment with the weak yen, you're really limiting your ability to go home, as it were. Career-wise, investment-wise, money-wise. And yeah, the currency is kind of a missing piece of that puzzle, I think.
Yes. So my long-term view on, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
We'll come to the future of Japan, I think, next, won't we?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, my long-term view of the yen is kind of negative.
Okay. So I have a separate question, but that kind of links with Jack's question from Twitter. He says related thing. Do you think that it's worth buying up yen while it's still cheap now and waiting until it gets better to sell off?
It's a big assumption, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if it's comes back to this base currency. So if you're Japan-based currency, you're going to spend all the money here. Then obviously, if you own dollars now, it's a great time to change it for yen. But if you're trying to play this, I'm going to sell it at 147, and then when it goes back to 110, I'm going to flip back. Personally, like I said, I'm quite negative long-term on the yen, simply because Japan has a huge amount of debt to GDP. It has a aging population problem. It's declining as a kind of global economic power. So I wouldn't want to be taking those bets. You say that, Bitcoin is scary. Currency can be pretty scary if you get stuck in the wrong one. Lots of people had this during COVID. When the yen, actually it wasn't so much COVID that did it, but when the yen kind of dropped, a lot of people were kind of caught. And actually, yeah, it kind of hit people more when COVID ended and they wanted to travel. And it's like, okay, I want to go home now, and now I'm allowed to get on a plane. I want to go and travel. And they'd been stuck in the wrong currency, and they'd been stuck in yen all of this time. And now you want to go
3 times as much now.
Yeah, so currency can get you in a relatively short amount of time if you're in the wrong one. So yeah, build assets in your base currency.
Related to that, so in NISA and iDeCo, when you're choosing funds, I've seen several which say hedge ari. So they have some kind of currency hedge in there. It's a dollar denominated or whatever, but you can buy it within iDeCo, within NISA. What do you think of those compared to like pure Japanese funds, pure yen funds?
That's a good question. So just in terms of, just because a fund is priced in yen, it depends what it holds as to what's the underlying. So a regular kind of US S&P 500 stock fund that you see in Japan that's priced in yen, I think there's it's a eMaxis Slim global stock fund I think I saw that's been the most popular fund in new NISA so far.
The all country
so that fund is, yes. So that one's not hedged. So it's priced in yen, but your underlying assets are a big mix of, dollars, euros, pounds, a little bit of everything. So you're getting this foreign currency exposure, which if the yen keeps weakening is good for you. If the yen strengthens is not so good for you. The hedged funds basically take the currency risk out of it. So although you're allocating to, for example, US assets, you don't have to worry so much about the changing currency. So the question then becomes, are you buying this fund just because you want to get, you want to get access to global stocks, or is it because you also want to get underlying currency exposure to something outside of the yen?
Mm-hmm.
So
and the hedging raises the fees quite a bit, doesn't it?
It does raise the fees. So I don't typically buy currency hedged funds.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a reason why you might, to take that kind of currency risk out of it.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're yen-based currency.
Sorry, the time is going on, but we do have some more questions if that's okay. We'll probably
Sure.
quickly do this. The Bean Pod on Twitter. Hello, the Bean Pod. What do you guys think about the recent boom in uranium stocks? That's what we're all thinking about. Maybe is it a big fad? Is it the next big thing? Please tell me it is the next big thing. They say.
Absolutely, it's the next big thing.
If you want to hear that.
I honestly don't know, but I have noticed that uranium stocks have been going crazy. It's a satellite holding. So I talk about core satellite. You have your core portfolio, and then you have, a little bit in stuff that's exciting. Yeah, just like Bitcoin or crypto, that's a high risk, very concentrated bet that if it comes off, you can make huge financial gain. And as long as you don't put too much in, you're not going to, destroy the bean pod farm. So yeah, I don't know anything about I don't know anything about uranium stocks, but I have noticed they've been going crazy. I don't own any, but yes, it's the next big thing.
I was hoping you were
just
going to say
buy
India.
more than about 5% worth of uranium
yeah,
stocks.
again, just a small percentage of your overall assets. I think, why not?
And one more. This will be the last one. But going back to the chickens are safer now, says the Bean Pod. That's good. Going back to the yen. The yen dropped partly because other countries tightened. They raised their interest rates, and Japan did not. What happens if Japan decides to raise interest rates?
Yes. So absolutely correct. So the kind of interest rate differential. US is kind of easy to understand. US is at about 5.5% base rate, whereas Japan's still at minus or pretty much zero. So yeah, that's the reason that the yen has dropped, is because people want to buy US assets more than they want to own Japanese assets. So in theory, if the Federal Reserve in the US starts cutting rates at some point this year, the yen should come back into balance a little more. So it should strengthen. Personally, I think it's highly unlikely the Bank of Japan are going to raise rates very far. If they do raise, it's going to be very, very small. And anything more than that will probably cause chaos, particularly in the bond market, which is huge.
Mortgages too. Like 90% of mortgages are floating rate, I think, at the moment in Japan.
Yes.
That many?
Yes. So yeah, in theory, it should, I think in the short term, the yen should strengthen against the dollar. Maybe we get back to 130 or something. But like I say, my kind of long-term view is that the yen is not a good place to be unless you're really going to spend the money in yen. And the dollar is actually the best place to be, because that's the global reserve currency, and that's the one that will go down last. Japan, out of developed markets, is kind of the one that's furthest along the monetary experiment path in terms of, printing money and debt to GDP. So Japan is kind of the one that's going to meet its reckoning first. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's probably not going to be good though, but there's going to have to be some kind of reset.
I think that segs nicely into the last thing we wanted to talk about, which is what do you think is going to happen in the future? So yeah, particularly with Japan, I guess, because pretty much everyone listening is either living here or wants to live here.
Sure.
What are the big themes that will affect individuals in the future, do you think, in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's demographics is what's going to affect everybody here. I can't remember the name of the author. I think you posted the piece as well by the Japanese author who was very pessimistic about Japan's demographic situation. I'm not that level of pessimistic. I think that's probably going a little too far. Obviously, it's a huge problem that the country needs to deal with, but I think Japan will deal with it one way or the other, and they won't deal with it as fast as we want them to, and they'll deal with it in their own way. But I think it's already slowly starting to change. I think the attitude towards immigration is slowly starting to change. It's going to take time. They're not just going to suddenly, flip the switch and solve the demographic problem. But yeah, obviously, huge amounts of debt with, an aging population. The choice.
It's become really obvious, hasn't it? Like staff shortages. Last 4 or 5 years, where you're like, okay, this restaurant is not running properly because it hasn't got enough people. Staff wanted everywhere. So something's got to give.
I think I saw today they're even changing the law about hiring foreigners to work in kind of local government, prefectural offices and things. That was kind of a no foreigners zone previously, but that's changing. I think it's going to change gradually, and Japan will deal with it in a very Japanese way, which a lot of people will disagree with, but
just adaptation, isn't it? It's going to be, we'll centralize a bit more. We'll have a few more robots and AI things. We'll bring in some more foreigners. Like we'll muddle by.
Yes.
Anything
muddle
else?
by. There will be a way.
So other than demographics, that's it.
All I've got.
The overshadowing.
Just crippling debt and terrible demographics. Yeah. Other than that,
unless you own enough Bitcoin, in which case you're fine.
And earthquakes.
Oh yeah. That's the next one.
So obviously, natural disaster is, very sobering kind of start to the year for anyone who lives in Japan. Just a reminder that, that can happen to any of us anytime.
Yeah, Nankai Trough is when, right, rather than if. So
yes. Yeah.
That was a depressing ending.
Sorry. No, let's be a little more upbeat. So it's really easy to kind of bash Japan and say, Japan will never change and it will never get there. But I think Japan can manage itself perfectly well and will do. Jesper Koll is the other person who I regularly post articles on. So he's got a blog called Japan Optimist. So if you're trying to if you're really negative on Japan, then I recommend reading his blog to balance it out.
Definitely, I post his stuff every so often as well. So it's nice to have that counterpoint. So
yes, there's plenty to be optimistic about too. And I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. So
I'm planning to stay as well.
Probably we're all going to be here. So we'll face it together.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Martin.
Thank you both too. Much appreciated. It was really fun.
So anyone who's listening now or when you see the recording, do check out Martin's site. It's got some really interesting stuff on there. He does have a coaching service as well. If you're looking for some help and so on. We'll look forward to getting you on again. Especially if Bitcoin explodes or something.
Yes, I will come on and say I told you so.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks a lot, Martin.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Take care.
You. Really nice to speak to you. Bye.
Oh, that was cool. That was actually one of the most convincing Bitcoin conversations I've ever had.
Yeah.
I've always been very skeptical before, but that made a lot of sense.
Yes, I'm already a believer anyway, but haven't really looked at it for a long time. So, maybe it's time to take another look. I've been trying to keep up with the comments, by the way. You had to comment on Twitter. May I comment? Says somebody. Yes, you may. Please.
Actually, this is our first time streaming to Twitter. We've upgraded. So, we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. No one calls it X. It's Twitter.
Cool.
We're on Twitter as well. So, anyone on Twitter, do feel free to comment and post questions and so on. we will answer them when we get a chance.
Yeah. Other questions from YouTube. Somebody's pointed out, I'm currently working for a car exporting company, a 200% increase in sales due to the weaker yen.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a positive point for Japan.
Hopefully you got a 200% increase in salary as well.
Yes, congratulations.
Because that's how companies work.
Yeah. And X-Chapter says, similar in a way to Bitcoin, what are thoughts on precious metals as a currency hedge? Gold versus the yen? If I can speak personally, I have a little bit of gold in my iDeCo account. The SBI iDeCo account offers a gold fund in there. I have a small bit just as a hedge. In The Economist magazine, end of the year, they were indirectly saying that metals like copper could be one to look out because used so much in the shift to renewable energies. So I've looked into that, although I haven't bought any.
Yeah, if you want to buy things like copper, like commodities funds will generally have exposure to that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not a fan of gold, but you know, if it's part of your diversified portfolio, Martin was talking about satellite holdings, kind of small things. You know, if you want to buy gold, then yeah, buy some, but don't buy a lot. Is how I'd put it.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to go skyrocketing, but if everything else collapses, then maybe gold will go up and balance it out a little bit. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, that's it, I think. So let's go on to the news. Yes. On to the news. No, it's not the end of the show. You don't get to get away just yet.
So sticking with the Twitter. Sorry, we don't have a voice comment.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, just
the only way to talk on this show is to be invited on as a guest. So if you want to be a guest, drop me a DM and tell me why people would be interested. So so news.
Yeah, we have
new NISA is here. Yes. So it started. I've already started using mine. I've got my 100,000 yen in the Tsumitate. I decided to break up the growth portion. So I didn't put all 2.4 million in at the same time. Put in 800,000. I'll do another 800,000 halfway through the year and so on. This is not the mathematically correct way to invest, by the way. So mathematically, you probably want to put everything in immediately. So you want to do a lump sum as soon as possible. But personally, psychologically, I'm going to break it up because it's quite a lot of money. So it's
going to say that
not perfect, like in terms of investing theory, but it's more comfortable for me. So that's what I'm going to do.
I thought you were going to say the correct way to do it would be to do it, for example, monthly, scattered through the year. I suppose you said all in one go at the beginning.
Yeah, so basically the idea is the stock market generally goes up maybe 2/3 of the time. So you want to be in the stock market. So if you've got a lump sum to invest, keeping it out of the stock market is not ideal. With the Tsumitate portion, that's fine because it's set up like that. You kind of have to do monthly payments. But with the growth portion, you know, a lot of people are going to throw everything in January. All 2.4 million if they're able to. And I'm not putting in new money. I'm selling stuff in a taxable account and moving that across. So that's kind of protection as well, because it's not like it's sitting there in cash. It's just invested in a different account, basically.
DCA. This person on Twitter again mentions DCA, dollar cost averaging. Yeah, so I like that because as long as I don't completely mess up, I'm happy. So if I do a little bit every month and then I get the average of the price through the year, even if it's not the best, it's also not going to be the worst. And so that suits my sort of attitude to risk.
Yeah, that's basically talking about when you have, you know, a salary and you're investing from your salary. But if you have a lump sum, the optimal thing to do is to put it all in at once, even though you might find it more comfortable not to.
Maybe this is one of those times where there is sometimes a difference between what's optimally the best, but then what might be psychologically the best. For example, with mortgages, mathematically, it's best to leave it in as long as possible if you've got a low interest rate. But psychologically, you might just want to get it off so that you don't have any debt anymore. So
that's a really good example. Yeah. So exactly the same thing. There's no reason to pay off your mortgage early in Japan. There's lots of reasons not to. But if it's going to make you happy and you're comfortable not having a mortgage, then yeah, go for it. Because again, we're not competing to be the most, fantastic money people in the world. We just want to reach our goals and be happy and enjoy life. So
yes, yeah.
Aha, we can come back to Nick's question. Finally, thanks for waiting, Nick. How long has it been? It's been like an hour since you asked the question in the first place, right? Yeah. So Nick had a question over an hour ago. So basically, pretty much every financial institution and their mother is offering NISA now. So like the post office has it, pretty much every bank has it, all the brokers have it. So where should you open a NISA account if you don't have one already? Generally, we recommend using a broker. So one of the online brokers, Rakuten, SBI, Monex, Matsui, they're all pretty much the same, whichever one you happen to prefer. I use Rakuten. So if you want me to help you, and if you get a Rakuten account, that's the easiest way for me to help you if you have a question or something. But all the brokers are the same. And the difference between, say, an online broker and maybe a bank or the post office is the online broker is generally going to have lower fees, much wider selection of things you can buy. And they're not going to call you up and try and sell you stuff, which banks sometimes do. So banks are aware of what you have. What's that?
Even the Japan Post Bank?
Oh, hell yes. They're the worst.
Oh really? Oh, I didn't know that.
So you might have noticed, like, last year, a couple of years ago, there's a huge scandal where post office employees were lying to people to sell them like unnecessary insurance and signing them up for insurance without their knowledge and stuff. So, yeah, the post office is got a pretty bad reputation. So I would generally not advise going through them for investments and things.
Just looking at the Japan Post NISA website, actually, and they currently offer 125 funds, which is nothing compared to what SBI, Rakuten, for example, will offer you.
Yeah, so for the Tsumitate portion, there's about 400 funds that are authorized to be sold as Tsumitate NISA products, for context. Not that you need more than one, but you want to be able to choose a good one, right? So.
Sorry, and the person on Twitter said Japan Post Office are lovely at the counter, and I agree. My local post office lovely, but Lord help you online, they say.
Yeah, like sending money with them used to be a complete nightmare, right? Like 4,000 yen fee and like huge forms, and so now we have Wise, so we don't need to worry.
Yeah.
So there's a good question about the percentage return. So basically the eMaxis Slim All Country Fund is based on the MSCI World Index, which is basically 1,500 world companies. So that's the return you're going to get. However those companies perform, that's what the return's going to be. I think historically, the return on the world stock market's about 8%. But, historical returns are not a guarantee of future returns. But that's roughly what it's been so far, on average.
Okay. Ben, let me give you a little quiz. I have just opened the eMaxis Slim All Country page.
Oh, no.
And it's showing me the figures for the past month, 3 months, 6 months, blah, blah, blah. Let's take
the last few years have been pretty good, I think.
Well, let's take the past year. Okay, let's test you. Over the past year, the past 12 months, what do you think the percentage increase or decrease has been on the eMaxis Slim All Country Fund?
Well, it's denominated in yen, so that's also going to make a big difference. So whenever the yen tanked, it's going to have gone up a lot. The price. I'm going to say 35%.
Oh, that's pretty good. It's actually 30.4%.
Oh, okay.
So I'd call that pretty good.
I didn't cheat. I didn't pull it up in another window. Like
impressive.
Yeah, that's just a rough idea.
Yeah, well done. But yeah, as you say,
but that's not normal, and there's a lot of currency movement in there as well. So that's not the kind of return you can expect going forward. it was just a good year. So
yeah, good one. We're getting lovely comments today. Thank you. Just missed one from Jack. Oh, actually, we'll finish talking about NISA, and then we'll come back to Jack's question in a minute.
Okay.
I did have a question for you about NISA, actually. So you put your money in, let's say at the beginning of the year, and you buy some fund or shares, and then you change your mind, you sell those because you want to buy something else. When you buy something, obviously your allowance goes down a bit. When you sell that stuff in the NISA, does your allowance go back up, or are you always just reducing it?
That's a really good question. So there's two allowances, right? You have an annual allowance where you can buy 1.2 million in Sumidate and 2.4 million in growth. That annual allowance doesn't come back.
Doesn't. Oh.
So if you buy 2.4 million in your growth and then you sell 1 million, you don't get to buy 1 million again. You've used up your annual allowance. Now, your lifetime allowance, you can get back.
And how much is that again?
So that's 6 million in the Tsumitate and 12 million in the growth. So basically 5 years worth. If you max out NISA, if you're in that position where you're able to max out NISA, after 5 years, you won't be able to put any more in unless you sell something.
Oh, okay.
And then you get back the cost basis. So whatever you bought it for, that's how much you get back, not whatever it's grown to. But yeah, you can reuse NISA, and you can use that to change your portfolio. So say you want to sell some stock stuff, buy some bonds, that's how you do that. But the annual limits don't come back. Yeah.
And they couldn't have the same rule for both because it's Japan.
Well, if you could get your annual limits back, you could trade in an unlimited fashion, and they don't want people doing that. So that's what the annual limit's for. It's to stop people trading.
Oh, okay, I'll let them off. That makes sense.
You're going to have to do your trading somewhere else.
I gave up. My poor track record has told me that, no, I'm not built for trading.
No, like I'm not. Like, I just get too stressed. Like looking at the price all the time and like, no, I'm not good. Not for me.
Okay, if we don't have anything else to do with NISA, then I'll go back to Jack's question, who is heading off to university this year. Congratulations. Should I wait until after I have graduated, or should I start getting some savings so I can invest while I'm still there?
That is a fantastic question and a fantastic... I'm so jealous. Like the idea of starting when you're like going to university. I recommend opening a broker account, starting to use NISA. You can open a NISA account when you're 18 in Japan. But because you can use tiny amounts of money. I think the minimum investment's 100 yen. So just don't even worry about investing a lot. Just get the accounts open, start using them, figure out how they work, see how you feel, buy some stuff, make a mistake. It doesn't matter because it's small amounts of money. But that skills and that knowledge that you're going to get from playing with it is invaluable. And it means that when you get a job and you've actually got some money, you'll know what to do and you'll avoid making mistakes. So fantastic idea. Open an account, invest tiny amounts of money, play with it. Don't worry about trying to build it too much. Like, enjoy university. That's also very important. But I think playing with, 5,000 yen a month or something is a really good idea.
100% agree. And we're in a similar situation now. Someone off to university a couple of years ago and kind of forced him to get a NISA and put a little bit of money in it. There's a little bit of money from grandparents. Okay, put some of that in there. And yeah, he's now seen it's gone up a little bit and he's got a little bit of dividends from it. And it's like, oh, that's like free money. Yes, it can go down as well as up, but the ball has started rolling there and it's now much easier for him to top it up, which he does occasionally. I think it's the momentum thing, isn't it? Once you get started and you get used to the idea and realize it's not as scary as you might think, then it's so much easier in the future.
What a gift, to get started that early.
I think so,
have an extra decade or two of compounding. Wow.
Yeah. Right. We're going back to our news then. What have we got next on the news? I found a couple of not necessarily financial things, but one is that there was a police panel that proposed, I don't know if it was actually decided, but pretty likely, I think, up to 12,000 yen fine for cycling violations, such as going through a red light or something. And when we discussed it, you said that exists already, I think.
Yes. So this is not a new, well, it's a new paperwork process. Basically, there's already a 20,000 yen fine for cycling violations, including using a smartphone, having headphones on, riding two people to a bike, using an umbrella. All this stuff's illegal, and riding the wrong way down the road, on the wrong side of the road. All of this stuff's illegal. There's already a fine, but apparently, if the police want to fine you for these offenses at the moment, it's quite a hassle for them. There's a lot of paperwork, so they don't want to do it. So this new proposal is to make it much easier to issue those fines. So they can give you a pink slip, I think it's called, which is an instant on-the-spot fine, and there's much less hassle for them. So it's much easier for them to hand out fines, and that's what this is about.
Right.
So I'm hugely in favor. I'm a very regular cyclist. I cycle pretty much every day. Other cyclists annoy the hell out of me. I wish I could give out fines. I'd do it for free as a volunteer. But yeah, huge. I think this is a great idea. Anything that makes the streets safer and makes people more kind of what's the word? More aware of what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Fantastic.
Yeah. And another not really financial bit of news, but interesting, I thought. Japan is apparently going to partially lift the current ban on ride-hailing services like Uber from April. Oh, or Lyft.
Was that deliberate?
No, it was actually, no, but I like Lyft.
Yeah. This is a bit of a nothing burger, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so frustrating. It's almost. I think from what I understood is that they are going to enable non-licensed drivers to drive. So regular people like you and I can drive, but within a taxi firm. So we can't just use our car and go out and pick people up. We still have to go to a taxi firm, and the taxi firm will still take the orders. So basically, it's just a way of increasing the drivers in taxi companies, I think, which may not be a bad thing, but it's certainly nothing like.
Why would you do that then? Like, if you want to be a taxi driver, you just be a taxi driver.
I think it gets rid of the process for getting the license.
Yeah, because you need a commercial license, don't you, to drive a taxi?
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make any difference, is it?
Yeah, I was wondering how it works. Whether they would have because one of the beauties of Uber and Lyft is that you use the app and it's so easy just to get a car. Does that mean we're going to need an app for each? What for all taxi services?
Probably not. But some of them have their own. Some of them use Uber and just call a normal taxi using the app. Like Uber's linked up with taxi companies as well, I think.
I didn't know that. Okay, I'll have to look into that.
So there are apps. I mean, that's the kind of attractive thing, isn't it? Using your app, paying through the app, like it just takes all the hassle out. Yes. Like telling people where you are and where you want to go, you don't have to do that anymore. You just do it on your smartphone. So
yeah, we needed to get to the airport a while ago, local taxi company, and we phoned up, can we reserve a taxi, please? And they said, oh no, we only reserve taxis for first thing in the morning. If you don't want to pick up first thing in the morning, we won't come. I can believe it. And I can only think that it's because if it's in the middle of the day, it messes up their, they have to make sure there's a driver in that area at a particular time.
Oh, and that's a reputational risk because they have to promise it, basically.
Right, yeah. So they have to be there super early, in advance because of traffic. I don't know.
You'd think they'd just give you the option and charge you for it. There's 1,000 yen fee or something for a reservation. Or,
Yeah, no, it was just a flat.
Yeah. So obviously they're not interested in business. Did you get a taxi in the end?
Yeah, but it was
30 minutes before, and
right. Yeah, so we phoned. Right. Okay, we'd like taxi now, please. But in the end, they were somewhere else, and then they got lost, and so it was a bit late. So in the end, it was like, the backup plan if you get the bus is okay. If the bus is late, then we'll get a taxi instead. We had taxi books, and then realized that whilst we're waiting there on the street for the taxi, what's our backup plan if a taxi doesn't work? So we might do the bus again in future.
Oops. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky in that I live next to the station, so there's always a few taxis outside the station. But yeah, in the future,
we're currently on news and current topics. We got some questions in about finance again. We'll get to that. We have a separate Q&A.
We'll come back to it. Yeah, we got questions at the end, haven't we?
Yeah. Now, talking about buses and transport and stuff like that, we did a bit of traveling, I think, like many people. And I can't remember what your thing was, but mine was we flew down to Kyushu, my wife's family, and we got the Shinkansen back to compare the two of them, partly for cost reasons, because the flights are so expensive. Did you go traveling as well?
I went down to Tokyo with my grandkids, which was kind of fun. We had to get the green car because there weren't any normal seats on the second.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
we couldn't. There were the only seats available. So like my granddaughter was like, "Woo, we're doing this forever." But no, you're not. This is a one-off.
So, yeah. Right. Yeah. So
better. I'm guessing the flights were better because they were quicker and less hassle.
Well, the funny thing is, so I was quite nerdy about it, and I was keeping a track of every change that we did. I wrote down the time. I have an Apple Note, if that counts. Every change that we did, I took a note of it. And would you believe it? Flights were faster by 5 minutes from our local station here in Kanagawa Prefecture to down to Kyushu. Really surprised. And
price?
We're kind of split. Oh, so it depends on the time of year. It was, I was stupid. I looked at the flights and it was like 30,000 yen. And I thought, that's crazy. That's too expensive. Maybe I'll find a deal. And I tried to find a deal and I couldn't. And then by the time I actually went back and decided, okay, I'll just get the flights a week later, they'd gone up to 40,000. This is coming up to the end of the year. Ridiculous. So 40,000 going down per person. And then on the way back, the Shinkansen worked out at 23,000. It's 4.5 hours, I think it was. And we decided to splash out and we went with the green car. And it was 30,000. So it was still less than the peak price flight. And my son and I, we like the Shinkansen best because not only is it nice and comfortable and quiet and smooth and you can walk around and get your bento and stuff, but there's nobody telling you what to pack and checking your luggage and sort of you feel like you need approval to fly. Well, you do, I suppose, to get through. But no, you just put whatever you want in your suitcase. You got access to it when you're on the train. And in the station, you get your bento or whatever. And it was really, really good. Really liked it.
I was not expecting that. So it's cheaper by train. You liked it better, and it only saves you 5 minutes to fly. That's crazy.
Yeah. A little bit boring because there's no back of the seat screen. So I would recommend downloading something in advance. I tried on the train, but it took me so long to download this half-hour program that I didn't have enough time to watch it.
Using the Wi-Fi.
Time it finished. Yeah, the in-train Wi-Fi. Yeah, it was really slow. So download stuff in advance if you want to kill time. But it was really relaxing, comfortable. So much legroom as well.
Oh, the green car's great. Don't go on the grand class because it makes the green car seem a bit shoddy. That's the problem with that.
Wow. Yeah,
I've only done it once to Sendai.
Yeah,
it wasn't long enough. I wanted to be on the train longer if I was going to pay for grand class. So.
Wow, it's strange, isn't it? With trains in Japan in particular, the sort of the upgrade to the next level class, I think is really good value for money compared to with flights. When you go up to business class or whatever, it's several times more expensive, isn't it? But the train increases.
The flat fee, I think 4,000 yen for green class, right? Something like
that. Maybe. This was
at least 7,000 on my line. It's a flat, 4,000 yen. Grand class is twice that. It's 8,000 yen, but still, that's not a lot for what you're getting. So,
and that's a 2-hour journey, something like that.
Yeah, between 90 and 2 hours. Yeah, 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Yeah, I think. Well, and especially when I think about how much first class train costs in the UK, that's really expensive.
Any train. Any train at all, like £200 or something. Yeah, and then it doesn't work and it doesn't have heating and stuff. I took my wife on a train in England and we got first class tickets because we bought them in advance, and it wasn't too much actually to upgrade. And then the first class didn't have heating. So we had to go and sit in the normal one anyway.
Really? Oh no! Oh dear.
Yeah.
Japanese.
Don't take. Yeah, and I took a bunch of kids from Sendai to the UK and Europe on a trip by myself. 10 kids. I'm never doing that again. But part of it was we went through the channel, the Channel Tunnel to France from the UK, and I was like, oh, it's going to be really exciting and great, and everyone was like, this is just a really bad, dirty Shinkansen, basically.
No. Oh dear.
So yeah, they're not going to be impressed with any trains anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. Right, moving on to other topics that we've got, and or rather within the news sort of stuff. Ben Carlson, who you mentioned a lot in your weekly blog links on RetireJapan.com, one of his recent articles, I thought he had a great little quote. He says, "We set aside some money for retirement, or it could be for emergency fund. But his approach is, when you're thinking about how much to set aside, think of it as a percentage of your income rather than a fixed amount." Because a fixed amount is just going to go down in value over time, whereas a percentage is going to keep its sort of spending power, I suppose.
Yeah, hopefully, if your income goes up over time, then that'll also grow. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Rather than saying 20,000 yen, which might be a huge amount now and almost nothing a couple of years down the line, just say, I'm going to say 5% or 10%. Makes more sense.
Yeah. I do like his website. You introduced me to that. I'll put there we go, the link in YouTube.
Nice.
There. Right. So that was a quick one there. What else? Oh yeah. So my wife in the post got this a little bit scary notification saying something about pensions going up, and of course I just skimmed it, didn't read everything, and thought, oh goodness me, what are we going to do? And I've not 100% got the right story there. Pensions are going up, but not necessarily, or how does it work? What's happening in 2024?
Yeah, so I'm not down with this stuff. I found a really good Reddit post that explains it, so we're going to link to that in everywhere in the description and the chat now. But basically, yeah, so by law, pension contributions and pension payments in Japan are linked to inflation to a certain amount and so on. So apparently they also go up in line with average wages, which means that as average wages are going up at the moment, pensions are going to go up by 2.7% or 2.8%, depending on whether you're under 68 or over 68. And the contributions are also going up. So if you're paying Kokumin Nenkin, they're going to go up by 460 yen a month. But the payouts are going up by 1,750 yen. So that's good if you're receiving Kokumin Nenkin currently. And it's probably slightly reassuring if you're worried about the future of pension system in Japan. It's actually pretty robust. Check out the post because it's really well written. And I can't claim credit for the content. So just click on through to Reddit and check that out. But basically, pension contributions are going up by a few hundred yen a month from April, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, don't be surprised when that happens.
One thing that did surprise me when I read that thing is that it mentioned the age 68. I didn't realize it had gone up to 68 already. I thought we were still at 66, 67 or something. But clearly I think they're pushing to 70, aren't they, in the next few years, I imagine.
The standard age is still 65.
Oh, okay.
To start receiving your pension. You get to choose, basically. So standard age is 65. You can take it as early as 60, but you'll get less. And if you take it later than 65, you get more. So if you take it at 70, for example, it goes up by 42%. And if you take it at 75, it goes up by 84%. So it's basically you kind of get to decide within that parameter.
Oh, okay.
The earlier you take it, the less you get, and that's fixed for life. And the later you take it, the more you get, and that's also fixed for life. So you need to kind of figure out when you want to start, when you're able to start, if you have the option.
Yeah. Okay. Right. What else do we have? Oh yeah. So let's cover the very unfortunate earthquake and tsunami that we had at the beginning of the year in the Ishikawa-ken in Noto region. And one thing I spotted, there's a website called Spoon and Tamago. I love that website. It's mostly focused on design in Japan. It'll have like really interesting architecture sometimes and things like that, or interesting posters. And it had a good one just recently of different local businesses in the Noto area that you can support. And looking at them, it seems that several of them sort of lost their sort of manufacturing factories or whatever, but they've got lots of stock which they're still able
Oh.
to ship and sell through their online stores. So it's a way of supporting them and of helping them get back on their feet. For example, there is a soy sauce manufacturer, and I just ordered some today, and they've shipped it already. So
Oh, wow.
they're really still on top of things. And there is a sake manufacturer, a wine producer. I'll put that link as well there.
Oh, there's some gin, I see. I just opened the link myself.
Yeah. If you are listening and you don't have access to the computer right away, then it's spoon-tamago.com. Very good website, and it's one of their most recent blog posts.
Nice. You can also use Furusato Noze if you want to help out the communities in the area, and you can also donate to charities like the Japanese Red Cross and so on, who are working over there. I was pretty shocked by how badly the government seems to have messed this one up, because I was fairly... What's that?
They put their hands up and admitted it, I think, haven't they?
Have they? Right. Well, yeah. But yeah, I mean, because I was impressed with 311. I thought, my impression on the ground is that was handled fairly well. But this one, they seem to have assumed it was nothing, and then it was actually really serious. So it took ages to get help to these people. So yeah, pretty shocking. Hopefully we'll learn some lessons so that next time round we get a faster, more effective response.
Yeah. In terms of what did go well, the alert, I think we all got it throughout the country on the TV. That was very impressive. In terms of, my background is in communication, and in communication, it's get the message across to the right people. And there was no doubt about what you should do if you were in the affected area, thanks to the clear messaging. So I was impressed with that.
Slightly traumatic for us, but
it was. But I think it sounds like it needed to.
But yeah, definitely worth. Yeah, it was very effective. Really, really effective.
It saved lives. Yeah. We were going to mention a few of our own earthquake tips, and you in particular, you've experienced the tsunami. I didn't realize it was actually at your front door, and you didn't realize.
Well, it reached the building we live in now, yeah, but only when there was only a few centimeters at that point. So
right, but you didn't know at the time.
So yeah, in Sendai, we lost power, obviously, and then we lost kind of internet and phones shortly afterwards. So we had no idea. So I mean, the most damaged area by the tsunami is just a few kilometers down the road from us, and it was just raised, right? So it's gone. But we didn't know, so we had no idea there'd been a tsunami. So everyone else was watching it live on TV in England and Europe and stuff, and we had no idea. So we knew there was a big earthquake. We didn't know about the tsunami. They hadn't installed those sirens yet, so. Yeah, we didn't know what had happened until we left and went to Kanazawa a couple of days later, and then we watched it on TV and we were like, "Oh my god!" so that's the other thing. Like, if you're on the ground and hopefully they've upgraded the the mobile networks and so on, but yeah, you wouldn't necessarily have access to TV or radio and so on. So yeah, it's pretty hard to get information once the power goes down.
Yeah. What's the lesson from that? Like, open your windows and doors and have a look or something.
I think having stuff charged. For us, the really big one was keeping the car full of gasoline. Like for us now, if it's half full, it's empty, so we fill it again. Because we drove to Kanazawa, and of course we couldn't get gasoline until 2/3 of the way there. So
right.
You don't want to have a flat tank when the earthquake hits.
That's a good tip.
And then have cash in small bills, because obviously no one's using credit cards or pay or whatever when there's no electricity. And no one's going to give you change either. So if you want to buy stuff, you need to have lots of 1,000 yen notes and coins and things.
That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that.
Because the shops are still open. All the conveniences are open, but you have to pay with cash, and you're not going to have a big window to buy stuff.
Yeah, we did find as well that so we couldn't get a hold of water. I was in Tokyo at the time. Couldn't get a hold of water, but there was still water in vending machines. And so at that point, coins were essential. Yeah,
apparently a lot of the vending machines now go to free once there's a disaster. Like they set it up so they just dispense. I don't know whether that actually works, but
yeah. I have one tip from I remember an article just after that happened from I think a British guy who's involved in lots of international quake relief rescue teams, and he was talking about several times he would go into a school or a collapsed building where people have been told to get under tables and desks, and this collapsed ceiling basically collapsed these desks and tables and flattened them, unfortunately. And each time he noticed that there were still gaps as he was crawling around on the floor. And so he would see these spaces where somebody could have safely hidden, and it would have been safer than being underneath a squashed table. So one thing we've got here is we've got a sofa and then a kind of step behind it. And so our safe space in the in case of an earthquake is now not going to be under the table, it's going to be behind the sofa, thinking that if something collapses, then the sofa's not going to go to completely flat. And if we're next to it lying down, we might have 1 or 2 feet that forms that sort of triangle where we will hopefully be safe.
That's a good point. I think the bath as well is pretty strong structurally if you've got a bathtub. Although part of the table thing is not necessarily to protect you from the house collapsing, but from stuff falling.
Oh, on your head, right?
Lights, your head, lights or bookcases or something like.
That's true.
So
we have a question on YouTube. Salary Cat, that's a good name. They say, I missed a lot of it. What do you do once the earthquake alarm goes off? Do you run outside or seek for shelter next to furniture or so? One other thing I want to say about this, in our previous place in Tokyo, when 311 happened, we had an apartment. I was at work, my wife was at home, and we were very organized. We designated the sort of the toilet as the safe space. My thinking being that it's a small surface area of the ceiling. So you got a big, large ceiling. It's more likely that some part of it's going to fall down. You got a small room with a small ceiling. Okay, quite unlikely that that ceiling is going to fall down. And there's water in there. You probably don't want to drink it, but if you're really desperate, there is some water there. And we had a little bucket in the corner with like Mars bars and torch and stuff like that. The big earthquake happened. I was at work, and eventually when I got in touch with my wife, did you escape to the toilet? And she said she opened the door, right? The house is shaking. I thought, there's no way I'm going to die in there. Closed the door, went out of the building. And so, you can have the best plan in the world, but when it comes down to it, it's like your instinct is going to take over, and you might not follow your plan. And so, even if you, when you're preparing where to shelter, you got to think about you're in a panic and it's all a disaster around you. Are you really going to go to that place? Are you really going to follow that plan? So we try to be more practical now, and so that's why I've got the sofa, because it's much easier just to lie down next to the sofa.
I always open the door, like if the building shifts, the door might get stuck. So the front door or the door of whatever. So I make sure that's open, but you don't want to go outside generally, because then you have falling glass, especially if you're in a built-up area. So you got falling glass, you got falling stuff. Outside is generally more dangerous than inside.
She did injure herself outside, actually. Sorry, she doesn't mind me sharing that. So yeah, she would have been better off staying in, but in the moment, you don't know.
Yeah, so I would say, that's what I did when that happened, and when we've had big earthquakes since, is just open the front door and stay inside the door frame, as it were, just ready to move once it stops. Because the other thing, if it's shaking badly enough, you can't actually walk around. So
a door frame's meant to be the safer part of the room, or is that meant?
I don't know. I just want to make sure that door is openable.
Right. Okay. So you've got an exit route. Right.
Yeah, and we don't really. I mean, we've got windows, but they've got bars on them, so the exit is the door. So
yeah. I should say we are not earthquake expert. Just experienced one, Ben, more than me. So
this is not advice, and we are not liable for your actions in a disaster. Funnily enough, I don't have an earthquake kit, which is kind of silly, having been through one of these already. We've got some food at home, we've got some water at home, but that's it. I'm not super organized. I haven't got all my important stuff in a backpack. Probably should do that at some point. It's kind of like last time, weirdly, was okay, so we're kind of blasé about it now.
Oh, right.
You know, like we were able to stay at home, even though the home was damaged and eventually got demolished. It was fine for a few nights. Actually, my big advice, because I wasn't aware this was an option, is to leave the area if you can. You know, you see all these, you know, you see people in earthquake shelters, and my question is, why don't they just leave? Like go somewhere normal, you know? And maybe you don't have the money, maybe you want to stay near your family, stuff like that. But if you can, leaving, it improves your quality of life immensely, and also takes some of the strain off local resources as well. So my advice, if there's a really bad disaster in your area and you're able to leave, go somewhere else, find a cheap hotel or something, and just stay there until things, you know, recover slightly.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that now in Noto, actually. They're doing the kind of Daini evacuation, basically. So the people who are in evacuation shelters are now being moved elsewhere to like more comfortable accommodation in you know, neighboring prefectures or whatever.
Right, yeah. But it's taken 3 weeks or so.
Yes, they've been there for 3 weeks, you know. So if you have the option, you can leave the next day. That would be my advice. That's what I'm going to do. Even if I have to cycle, you know, like if I have to get on a bike and ride for a couple of days, I will do that, because yeah, I don't see the point in being here miserable unless there's a really good reason for it.
Yeah. Good question. Radio. What about radio? Did you, without power, did you find you used a battery
cars?
Radio?
You can use a radio in the car.
Yeah. Did you find that useful?
That'll have a battery. There is an emergency broadcast, but the emergency broadcast was like, didn't say anything about the tsunami. Most of it was like, the nuclear power plant is completely fine. We had real trouble getting my wife's parents to come with us, because they were like, no, the radio, the government says everything's fine. I'm like, no. I'm getting phone calls from Europe somehow that telling me that, you know, it looks bad, so we're leaving, and we'd like you to come with us.
Yeah, the communication was terrible. That was really
right. But anyway, it worked out okay. But yeah, definitely leaving is good, I think.
Yeah. Right, that covers our news and other topic stuff. Now, I hope you don't mind, but I've kind of informally started a new section called Daniel's Money Tip.
Okay.
I keep getting these things. Oh, that's a good one. I should mention that. And so I got some.
Okay, up. So this is going to be a regular feature going forwards
until I run out. Yeah. So my money tip this time. It's January. Now's a good time to buy your Christmas decorations. That was my first tip. Although then I actually tried to follow.
Where are you going to do this, Daniel?
Well, this is it. I go on to Mercari.
Which shops have Christmas decorations now?
I didn't find many. But I go to Mercari and think, okay, people will be selling their Christmas decorations right now. And I go on there and I found about 2 that were just like broken lights and something like that. So I started off with this tip and it was a really good tip. But when I tried to put it in practice, it wasn't so good. However, now is a good time to look for things that you might not buy at this time of year. For example, hotel bookings and flight bookings. And so I did manage to get a hotel with their early start of year special or something until the 17th of January in this particular case, but I'm sure all different hotels are doing the same thing. And so, get a hotel this time of year early for later in the year, and you could be saving quite a bit of money. We managed to. So maybe not Christmas decorations after all, but it doesn't have
Christmas
to look.
decorations, if you try and buy them on like the 24th, that's when you're going to get cheap Christmas decorations. 24th, 25th, maybe, but they take them down so quick, right? So,
yeah.
You know, it's already Valentine's now. It's Valentine's chocolates everywhere. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Actually, I did see Christmas chocolates for sale, and that was Christmas Eve, I think, at a local supermarket. Half price or something. Yeah. Brilliant.
Like the best time to get those ehomaki, right? So February 3rd is the ehomaki. You know, you eat the big rolls of whatever.
What? Sorry.
What?
What's that? Ehomaki.
So, you know, the oni thing where you throw peanuts at the devils. And, yeah. You also eat the ehomaki, right? These big rolls.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's a different direction you have to face each year, and you face in that direction. You eat the roll in silence, and you get like a wish. But basically, all the convenies, all the supermarkets, all the restaurants selling these things. But obviously, by that evening, no one's buying them anymore, so they're on like a third of the price, half price. So that's when you buy your ehomaki on the night of the February 3rd, basically.
Oh, okay.
If you want to save money.
I didn't know this thing, but that's a good one. Yeah, and on YouTube, Yevgenia has suggested that winter clothes are also going to be going on sale soon. Yeah, I've seen that with
nice.
It was Hard Off, actually, our local recycle secondhand place. Yeah, they got 20% off all heating appliances because it's supposedly going to be coming to the end of the cold season soon. So yeah, there's a good time to look for things, look for bargains that you don't need right now, but you will do later in the year.
This applies to everything. So buying stuff when everyone else isn't buying it, you're going to get it cheaper. It's going to be easier. Going places when other people aren't going there. Like I love going shopping on weekday evenings because no one's there. You go to like a mall or something, it's empty weekday evenings. You go on Sunday afternoon and you can't move, right? So all that kind of like time arbitrage.
Yes, yeah. Ehomaki, I've never heard of that.
Really? Is it maybe? It's not a Tohoku thing, is it? It must.
I think so.
It's a Japan.
We do the throwing beans at the. Oh, hang on, I'm getting funny looks here. Have you heard of ehomaki? Yeah. Okay. She's giving me that. Of course, I have. Look, so I think it's probably just me that's like completely.
Yes. It's not just Tohoku.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, buy your ehomaki on the evening of February the 3rd. That's Daniel's money tip from Ben. There we go. Good. I need to get a little chime. Ding, ding, ding. Right.
Yeah, we need more sound effects, don't we? We need a theme tune, and we need little bells or castanets or something.
Yeah. Right. Next, then we're going to talk about. So we do have some more questions in the chat. Thank you very much. But we're going to do a full QA session at the end. So Retire Japan courses. This is your bit.
Yes. So super exciting. We finished our first video course. I've been wanting to do a video course for years now. So I've been planning this course for years. Finally got it done end of last year. It's now available. It's called The Basics of Personal Finance in Japan. And it's basically personal finance except investing. So there's a little bit about investing, but not very much. And it's all about, attitudes towards money, saving, emergency funds, insurance, medical stuff, taxes, all that kind of stuff. In Japan, it's a video course, so you can access it whenever you want. It's basically, I think it's 74 short videos. Probably take a couple of hours to watch the whole thing. There's a few exercises in there as well. But if you want to kind of start on personal finance, I think it's a good way to do so. So please check it out. There'll be a link somewhere. Yeah, and then our main kind of flagship course is starting in February. So that's called Your First 10 Million Yen. And that is basically everything you need, all the knowledge and encouragement and support and that push to get started with investing. And basically, it should allow you to get to 10 million yen at some point. And once you get to 10 million yen, then it's easy to get to 20 and 30 and so on. So if you're interested, there's a link somewhere in the description.
I have the link to the maven.com one, but I think it's changed now, isn't it? Or is it still maven.com?
Oh, yes. It's a different one now. Let's see if I can pull that up. Yes. That's a very good catch. Yeah, Maven absolutely screwed us over. I'm gobsmacked at how badly they handled that for us. And
not a good day for you, was it?
It wasn't. And then they finally got back to me and said, "Oh yeah, it was our fault. We fixed it now. Do you want to try again?" Like, no apology, nothing. Basically, the short story is we launched our course and they had some bug in their system so that they were charging 100 times the price to the people that are trying to buy the course. So thankfully,
because of Japanese yen.
I think they added 2 zeros because they thought it was dollars, but it was in yen. So that somehow ended up with 2 extra zeros on the yen price. So thankfully, no one's credit cards were going through with that kind of price. So, but yeah, it would have been even more of a nightmare if we'd actually charged someone that much money. Like, yeah, not fun. So yeah, I'm not going to be using them again.
So yeah, we'll find the link for that and then put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Unless you have it right now.
Let's see. I think I have it. So.
Okay.
Yep. There we go. So that's in there.
Hey, is that it for the your course updates then?
Yep.
Right.
Short and sweet. So there's a video course and there's a live kind of cohort course.
Yeah. Live course. Okay. So next we're going to move on to the forum, Retire Japan forum, retirejapan.com/forum.
Yeah, so the forum's very active again. Recent posts, we've had one on how the tax on iDeCo works, which is kind of interesting. It's a little bit complicated, unfortunately. Lots of stuff about the new NISA account, of course. Everyone's getting excited and starting to use NISA and running into problems with NISA and not understanding NISA. So lots of activity on NISA. There's one about naturalizing in Japan, which I'm very interested in because I'm planning to do that at some point. There was one post from someone who's in the EU at the moment, and they're planning to move to Japan, and they want advice on what they can do to get ready for that. So that's an interesting thread. So if you've got something to add to that thread, that would be really cool if you could drop in and give some advice there. Thread about getting a UK passport for a child in Japan, child born in Japan. So for that first kind of registration, going through the embassy and doing lots of illogical paperwork, which the UK seems to be very good at. People talk about Japan and paperwork and bureaucracy, but yeah, it's way better than the UK in my experience, because at least you can get answers from humans here.
But the UK government website is really good, I find.
It's getting better, isn't it?
Simple, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, apparently, a bit of a tangent here, but apparently you're going to be able to pay your UK voluntary pension contributions online. So,
really? So
yeah, there's a little thing saying online payments are coming soon. So I'm like, oh, come on. That would make so much difference.
Wow.
Which you can also do in Japan. You can pay your Nenkin online with a credit card if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, last four. We've got one about what age kids were when they first went to nursery, which is interesting because everyone seems incredibly young. It's like immediately, like 3 months or something. I was like, whoa. There's one about how to make a dividend stock portfolio, which is such a good question that I think I'm going to do a YouTube video about it.
Oh,
so basically, building a dividend stock portfolio versus an index fund portfolio. So the benefits and disadvantages of each. I thought that was a great question. There's one about how to read kanji online using apps or browser plugins, which was interesting. And there's one about overseas institutions asking for my number. Well, not my number, but maybe my number, and why that's necessary and where that comes from. So, yeah, lots of stuff on the forum. Go check it out. You don't have to register if you just want to read stuff. You can just read it as a guest. But if you want to post, you will have to register for the forum.
Very cool. Very good. Right, and so now we head on into the Q&A time. Thank you for waiting patiently. So we have a few, and I'm going to go back to an earlier one from Yevgenia on YouTube, and they say, how would you suggest to diversify a beginner portfolio if I currently spend about 25% of my income? NISA is completed already. When they say spend about 25, I think they mean like spend in an investment account, so invest 25%.
No, I think this is actually saving 75%.
Oh, really? Oh,
it's incredibly impressive.
Oh, they're going for fire, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So NISA obviously is the first place to go, iDeCo as well. After that, it's basically invest in a taxable account. You can just keep buying the same stuff. You might want to look at real estate if you're interested in real estate. We've got that interview with Ziv. So one of our season 1 episodes is we haven't talked to Ziv yet, have we? No, Ziv made a video for us a while back talking about real estate in Japan. And we want to get him on for Retire Japan TV at some point. But yeah, looking at that video and thinking, you know, is this something that you might be interested in? That might be a good way to diversify. But otherwise, yeah, you can just keep buying the same stuff in a taxable account. That's basically what I've done. Any thoughts, Daniel? Diversification. Obviously, you can buy gold. You can buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, I have some,
Not too much.
some cryptocurrency, but mostly, if I don't have enough space in NISA, I'll just buy things directly in the taxable account because I still think that's good. I go for dividends personally, and what I like about that is that it's a flat 21%-ish. So no matter what your sort of income is, you're always going to pay 21%-ish tax on dividends that come in as income, and capital gains if you sell any. And to me, that seems like a really easy thing to do. Of course, the value of those could go up and down, and I do keep thinking about property, but I just can't do it. There's the added complication. There's the sort of the risk of, will it be occupied or not? Do I need to do renovations and maintenance? And the value of property in Japan doesn't really tend to go up over time. So all these things turn me off. But I know a lot of people love it and do very well by it. And so, yeah, we mentioned Ziv. He recommends it for the right type of person. I think it's very good, but that's just not for me.
I think there's real estate people and there's not real estate people, and it's important to know which one you are. Like, some people love it; they love the detail, they love, all the stuff that you have to do around real estate, and some people don't. So I think both of us are in the we're not real estate people camp, maybe.
Yeah, but they do mention diversification. So yeah, I'm wary that I don't want to have all of my stuff in, for example, Japanese dividend stocks. And so recently I've been trying to diversify. I actually bought an India fund this week. Not investment advice. It could go either way, but it's kind of one of those things, I'll put some in there. If it goes down, at least I can take comfort that it's been some kind of diversification. And yeah, a bit of gold. I'm thinking about copper just because they should be uncorrelated with stocks.
REITs as well. So if you want to buy real estate without owning it directly, you can buy a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust. That basically is like an index fund for real estate. So there's different ones. You can buy hotels, you can buy hospitals, you can buy residential, you can buy everything. Like, there's all sorts of REIT funds available in Japan. So that might be an easy way to own real estate. The only problem with a REIT, though, is compared to a REIT to actually owning a building, is you don't get the tax benefits. So lots of people buy real estate in order to offset their taxes. So if that's something that you might be interested in, that might be something worth exploring.
And that link for Ziv's video where he talks about investing in real estate in Japan. This is something he did for us a couple of years ago, which is good. I should say that these are not recommendations. I don't recommend you go and get India Fund or copper or something. It's just suggestions of what we do, which are up for consideration. Right.
Excellent.
Move on to the next question then. Bo Albright on Facebook. Hello, Bo. I know this is very American-centered. That's okay. But it almost feels like there is no such option for Americans living in Japan to open a retirement investment account without getting double taxed. Oh, the double tax question again. It feels like Japan wants to tax you on American accounts and America wants to tax on Japanese accounts. Are there any solid options anyone in this live chat has heard of for Americans living in Japan? At this point, I've somewhat given up. I'm just trying to invest in a very much taxable account, I think that is.
Yeah. So, so of course, America does not recognize Japanese tax-exempt accounts, and Japan does not recognize American tax-exempt accounts. This is all a problem because of US tax law. That's the only issue here. But I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So yeah, you don't have any tax advantage options. The best thing is just to invest in a US taxable account. I think that's what a lot of people do. It's the easiest option because then the paperwork's easier with the IRS and with the Japanese authorities. So that's probably the best option.
A US taxable account.
Or Interactive Brokers Japan, which is licensed, because it's a US company, it's licensed with the US, and American citizens can use it.
Oh, right. Okay. But also follows up with another comment saying, thank you so much for doing this show. It started motivating me to be more financially responsible than I was before. And so I want to say this, if don't spend too much time worrying about what the perfect thing to do is. If we provide motivation just to do something, whatever it is, then I think it's worth it. It won't be perfect, but something is better than nothing. So please, whatever you do, just take some action.
Yeah, open an account and start buying some cheap ETFs, US ETFs, Vanguard ETFs or something, and that'll be a great start.
Okay, next question from LinkedIn. This one, Kurt. Hello, Kurt. I'm retiring this year to Japan. Oh, welcome. It's an exciting and a bit scary adventure. You're going to love it. I look forward to learning from your experiences. Oh, okay. So not really a question, but just, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So good luck with the move. Yeah, come to the forum, ask questions.
Yes, the Retire Japan forum is not just financial questions, is it, Ben? I think it's for...
No, we've got a general section. We've got kids section. It's basically personal finance, investing, retirement, and life in Japan. So,
yeah. Excellent. Jack again. Hello, Jack. He says, "What do you guys think about investing in premium bonds?" Does he mean the UK premium bonds?
Yes, I think so. I think it's a gimmick. It's kind of pointless. So the rate of return is how much? 2%, 3%? You're probably better off investing in the stock market. I know some people that do it because they like the idea of, having the chance of a large payout, but mathematically there's a return on premium bonds, and it's X%, and that's what you're going to get. Basically, you get your £50 prize every so often. But yeah, I had some before. I've sold them all. It's not. I don't find it particularly interesting. Again, if this is a satellite holding, so if you want to get premium bonds, put a little bit of money in there just because there's a chance. That's fine. Just don't put everything in there.
For people who aren't aware of this, in the UK, there is a thing called premium bonds. I think it used to be organised by the government or the post office or something like that. So official channel, yeah. So it's not like a scam or anything. And it's kind of like the lottery, but they pay you a small bit of interest each year. So you buy your lottery.
You don't get interest. So there's a prize pool. There's no interest on. That's the problem. Is that so you don't get interest, but each bond you own is entered into a prize draw, and the prize draw has like some large prizes, like £1 million prizes, all the way down to £50 prizes. So statistically, you'll get a couple of £50 prizes every so often, which equates to about I think the prize fund is worth X% a year, something like 2% a year or something.
So that's right. So unlike a regular lottery, you basically own that lottery ticket forever, and it's re-entered into every draw. And so eventually you're pretty likely to win something, but it'll be worth not very much compared to what you eventually...
Okay, so it's actually 4.6% at the moment, apparently.
Okay, that's an average. So it's not an interest rate. It's like an average of roughly
that's what the prize fund is.
Right.
So that 4.6% generates the prize fund, and then... So, unless you win the $1 million one, you're not going to get anywhere near that kind of return.
Right.
So compared to a current account, compared to a savings account, which in the UK currently pay like 5.5%, I think, it's not great.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know how Japan's going to tax that, even if you do win, right? I think they're tax-free in the UK, but certainly not in Japan. So
no. Yeah, well, I got rid of all my British stuff because I discovered that Japan taxes your worldwide income, which is just a big hassle. So, Gania is back with another question. Very keen. Would you suggest to buy Apple stocks or Amazon stocks or something like that?
Well, if you own a world or US stock fund, you already own these. So to buy more of them is concentrating your investment. It's saying you think these stocks are going to outperform, so you need more of them. And I don't make that kind of value judgment. So I just buy the entire market. So I get the market return. I think you could make the case either way. So you could make the case, yes, these Magnificent Seven companies, they're going to continue to outperform because they've cornered AI and all that. Or you could say, okay, so they're doing great now, but they'll probably come down again in the future. So yeah. You own them already if you have a world stock fund. So it's whether you want to buy more of them or not.
And we don't really do valuations.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Nobody knows.
Going back to Japanese REITs, the real estate investment trust, do they pay out dividends as they do in the US?
Yes. So REITs generally are forced to. They have to pay out their profits in the form of dividends. It's part of the structure. So yes. So my wife has a Japanese REIT, and I think it pays out every 2 months. So you get dividend every 2 months.
Do you know what the dividends is in percentage terms, roughly, annual dividend?
I'm not sure. It depends on the fund, I'm guessing. So
I thought they were generally quite high, like 4%.
Relatively, yeah. So you're not going to get as much capital gain generally,
Right.
but the dividend might be slightly higher than you'd get from a company, say.
Yeah.
Because the REIT is paying out all its income, whereas the company is only paying out some of it, and it's going to be reinvesting some of it as well.
Right. And you're getting a bit of diversification as well. And we have one more question here from Kai. I have a question about the new NISA. Do I have to set up monthly automatic payment for the Tsumitate portion, or can I do a lump sum of 1.2 million yen?
So the way it was intended to be used is you have to do a monthly payment. So you do actually have to do a monthly payment. So that's up to 100,000 yen a month, 12 monthly payments. Now you can game the system. You can set a monthly payment of 100 yen and then do a lump sum for the remainder. But it's a bit of a hassle. So it depends. Like, do you want to jump through that hoop enough to make a lump sum payment, or do you just, is it dollar cost averaging going to be enough? So yeah, you can do a lump sum payment of 1.2 million minus 1,200 if you really, really want to.
Okay.
That's using the bonus feature of the Tsumitate system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you need 12 monthly payments, but they can be as low as 100 yen. So you could make 12 payments of 100 yen and then lump sum the rest if you want to.
Okay. I should clarify that is for the Tsumitate part of the NISA. With the regular part of the NISA, there is no sort of requirement to pay monthly.
Yep. So you can do lump sum with growth, the Seicho part.
Seicho. Cool. We've gone through all our questions. Thank you ever so much, everybody who commented and raised a question.
This has been our most active one, I think.
It's been excellent. Yeah, very good. I've learned a lot.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's been great. Really enjoyed talking to Martin. Really enjoyed having the chat just now. Next one is going to be next month. I think the 19th. Mystery guest. We'll announce it soon. And yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Cool. So just Sunday, I think, asked a quick question about kakute shinkoku, the tax forms we have to submit as a freelancer. Any resources that they know to understand everything? I would guess RetireJapan.com/forum is the best place to ask that.
Yeah, tax office has some stuff in English.
They've been very helpful
in Japanese. If you're okay with Japanese, go on YouTube, search online. There's loads of resources for this stuff. Some of the accounting software, like Free EE, FREEE, I think it is. They've got resources. So yeah, look online is where I'd go for that.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. See you next month.
Hey.